Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the first EUMANS meeting officially organized to prepare the Citizens Congress that we want to have in Warsaw in March. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Virginia Fiume, and I am the coordinator of EUMANS, and I'm based in Brussels. The meeting of tonight has a double purpose. First of all, is to start and share exactly the concept of why and how we are approaching Warsaw as the destination of this process that started already 2 years ago when we founded EUMANS with the goal of a movement of popular initiative for democracy and sustainability, a pan-European movement. Secondly, I'm very, very happy to have with us Monika Frackowiak, who is a Polish judge and member of the organization Iustitia, which is one of the organizations that in the past years organized demonstration for the protection of the rule of law in Poland. One characteristic of this demonstration, particularly the one that was organized back in January 2020, where Marco Cappato, our founder and president, was present, was the European approach of that demonstration. The call of the judges at that time was a call for the European judges to join this demonstration. And this gives us, I think, an important framework when we talk about having our Congress in Poland, not only to stay side by side with the Polish citizens, but also to approach issues that goes from the rule of law, democracy, civil rights, and sustainability from a pan-European perspective. So the purpose of tonight's meeting, as I said, is to introduce us to the Congress in Warsaw, to go through the pillars that we have identified as strategical, and then to give, first of all, the floor to Marco, and then Monika for an introduction of the Polish context from a rule of law perspective, which is the foundation of what we are gonna try to achieve in Warsaw. So I don't know if maybe Marco first wants to kind of contextualize and remind us the reasons for this Congress, the political perspective that we started on, and then maybe I can say a few words on the
Thank you. Thank you, Virginia. Yes, very, very, very briefly, because the very idea of a pan-European movement is the same reason why we are trying to organize the Congress in Warsaw, which is the idea that the defense of rule of law, democracy, and freedom should not be just left to intergovernmental relationship. It should be a matter for citizens, directly involved through tools of participation, of participatory democracy. So a lot of things are happening on the issue of Poland, Hungary, and the rule of law, as you have seen from the newspaper. And then Monika will tell us much better than I could do what the situation is. But what I would like to underscore is simply that the kind of confrontation between some governments within the European Union is not enough. Is not enough to find a solution to the situation. Sorry, I have my daughter. 1 second.
She already wants to fight for the rule of law, I think.
So, okay, now she's crying. No, I was just saying that the confrontation among government is not enough to find a solution, because every government has its own problem with the rule of law and with democracy. So there are tendency of help one each other. Some governments are tough in criticizing what is happening in Poland, but at the end, they need to find a compromise among themselves. I think that citizens could unite themselves in fighting for specific goals that are cross-border, that are not just national goals. So, as you can see from the draft program for Warsaw, we want to deal with some issues, some items that can be not only the rule of law, but also climate change and civil freedom and digital rights and participation too. But we would like to deal with those issues directly with citizens, not just through nations and governments. So this is the spirit of the idea of convening the Congress in Warsaw, and it's the same idea at the basis of the plan of building a pan-European movement as EUMANS. I can stop here, and I think that the presentation from Monika could give us a much better sense of what is happening there.
Thank you, Marco. Before giving the floor to Monika, I just want to highlight, and I'm very happy to have with us also Klaus Samborg from the Unconditional Basic Income European Citizen Initiative. Thanks, Klaus, for being with us. I want to remind all of us that this Congress is going to be what we make out of it. And the way how we construct it should be a space for first put together ideas, solutions, and then to debate that among citizens thinking European rather than as representatives of the place where we happen to be born, which is not necessarily the place where we live either, but also to conceive it as something that can create the conditions for having a political impact. So how we can build a moment in Warsaw that becomes a platform for citizens and organizations to approach issues from a pan-European perspective with instruments that can get into the system somehow of the European Union or through the European Union at the national level state. Marco already mentioned the key pillars from a political perspective that we will tackle in the Congress, but I agree that maybe the first person to have the floor is Monika to tell us a bit about the ongoing situation in Poland, but also from the judges' perspective, but also if you can share a few words on how you see the role of European citizens in Poland and outside of Poland. It really struck me a lot, the type of call that you made 1 year, almost 2 years ago now, for the call for European judges to join your demonstrations. And another point that I want to remind to all of us, because the role of municipalities is quite important in all the actions that we did. The last demonstrations that were organized in Poland at the beginning of October ran through 120 cities. So it means that the movement for the rule of law is very spread, is not only Warsaw based. So again, I don't know if Monika, you can tell us a bit also about the relationship between the center and the periphery, as someone can say in this. Thanks a lot again for being with us, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for the invitation. Well, the situation in Poland right now is very complicated and is more and more difficult each day. Well, first of all, I think it's a really good idea to organize something, a big event with civil society and with citizens, because what we can observe here in Poland, but I also think in other countries, is that people are really tired with politicians' talk. And I think it's we need to have a platform to speak out and because we are not that limited and we don't really need to care about this political language. And it's also important for us judges that we are not treated as, you know, as politicians, we need to be not political. So it's much more, it's very convenient for us to participate in such event. And after all, everything is about protection of human rights in general. And rule of law is the fundament of keeping human rights everywhere in Europe and in the whole world. So just, it's not possible to tell you everything about the current situation in Poland, because the situation is very dynamic. What we can observe is that our government is going to have real war with European Union. I mean, they even use this war language, like our Prime Minister, he just gave interview to the Financial Times, you know, talking about the Third World War. So the language politicians in Poland use is more and more radical, and especially regarding judiciary. So there is no way that they are doing any step back. And even today, the new proposal was published, still not officially, as I believe, but about the new so-called reform of the Supreme Court and of the system of the common courts and so on. So it's totally against everything what the European Court of Justice says and European Court of Human Rights. Just recently, the Polish Minister of Justice fired a motion to Polish Constitutional Court, which you probably know that it's not a real institution, real constitutional court any longer, because it's totally politicized. So he fired a motion to the tribunal stating that Article 6 of the Convention on Human Rights, which is about the right to a fair trial, is not in compliance with Polish constitution regarding the constitutional court. So, which is a total absurd. It's a kind of response of our government to the verdict which was delivered by European Court of Human Rights in June this year, this so-called cellar floor case. And we have constant, you know, as I said, kind of war with European values on and on. You know about this anti-abortion law, and just, you know, within last weeks we had the case where a woman died because the doctors were afraid to terminate her pregnancy, and she died of sepsis. So that was, you know, very shocking event, but quite easy to predict when the verdict was delivered. Then we have, because, you know, I could talk a lot about judiciary, but as you probably know, in shortly speaking, it's just a matter of taking control over everything. And we have the verdicts that were delivered by the European Court of Justice in Luxembourg, and there is, you know, this struggle now with European Commission, because there is this new program of funding countries, and this links between rule of law and money. So our government really needs money, but on the other hand, they don't want to make any step back regarding judiciary. So one case is judiciary, another case is another issue, very really important in Poland is the free media and access to information, which, because we have public media which is again totally politicized, and it's incredible propaganda you can hear. They're also against European Union. So, and of course we have the refugee problem right now. It's crisis, because people are dying literally on the border between Belarus and Poland, and Polish officers and Polish soldiers, they are commanded to push back these refugees who are brought to Belarus by Lukashenko. So they are pushed back to Belarus, and because Belarus is pushing them back again, they are simply dying in the forest, and we have really difficult conditions right now in the eastern part of Poland. It's eastern part of Poland because it's, you have like 0 degrees during the night, and so it's another really dramatic crisis we have. We have also an incredible campaign also by some organizations linked to our government against women. So it's somehow also linked to this anti-abortion law and anti-abortion verdict, which was delivered last year. We have the Public Prosecutions Office totally taken by politicians again. So, more and more spheres in Poland are taken by politicians who are governing right now. We hardly have any institution to control the executive. We have still courts and judges, but it's only the matter of their character and of their bravery, because from the systemic point of view, judges have no protections. There are plenty of disciplinary proceedings against judges who apply directly European law or European Convention of Human Rights even. So that's, shortly speaking, the situation in Poland. If you would like to have some more details, please ask, because it's just not possible to tell you everything. It's really really wide spectrum.
Okay, I see Marco, and please.
But I have just a question. Thank you, Virginia. Thank you, Monica, for the very effective summary that you made of the situation over there. My question is about how, let's call it like that, how it is perceived help coming from outside, because I was at the demonstration. I was present in Warsaw 2 years ago during the demonstration of the judges, and there were judges coming from all over Europe, supporting the Polish judges. And but talking with a different representative from Polish organizations, I also noticed that there were some worrying in not showing the Polish movement, democratic opposition, and so on, as directed from outside, because this could damage the fight in a way. So my question is from outside, from foreigners or from other countries, which kind of help can be more needed? And the second question is about the law on the law. If I read correctly on the media, there are plans on passing a law prohibiting talking about homosexuality in public or something like that. So I want to understand what is the situation from that point of view, and which are the perspectives. Thank you.
Monica, if it's fine for you, do you prefer to reply one by one, or shall we collect a few questions? It's up to you. Tell me, because I see.
So maybe one by one.
Okay.
It's easier, I think. So first, answering your first question, I would say that the key word here is the cooperation. If we cooperate with people from other countries, it's really okay, and it's. I think that the perspective is really fine. because first of all, for us, I mean, for active people from civil society, it's so important to know that we are somehow supported by Europeans, and that we, you know, after all, we are all Europeans. We all live in Europe, so it's from that point of view is very important. And for this who might have some, you know, questions about it, it's also very important that, you know, it's good argument that it's not that somebody from the outside is directing a movement here in Poland, but no, it's first of all, it's Polish civil society initiative. So, and people from outside are just cooperating with us. So I think it's fine. And of course, there's also always a group of people who fanatically, you know, support the ruling parties right now in Poland. And of course, they buy this propaganda that, see, there is somebody from the outside and is telling you what to do. But there's really no point to worry about this. So I think it's very important. And for us, like this march of this 1,000 robes for judges and for other lawyers, it was really incredibly important. And still many people, not necessarily lawyers, but like, you know, simply people who have nothing to do with law in Poland, they still talk about this. And it was very important for them that judges from Italy, from Spain, Portugal, and other countries, they came especially to Poland to show their support. So I think in general, it's really positive. And another thing, as you know, in Poland, there's also huge propaganda against LGBT people. And yes, there is a kind of a draft of new law. It was drafted by a very radical organization. So it's not, at least officially, the idea of politicians. It's citizens' idea. That's how it is called, actually, and it's very radical. It is in the parliament right now, and unfortunately, it wasn't rejected after the first reading, but it's still in parliament. We don't know whether it's going to pass or not. Of course, like with everything, our authorities, they do not, they say that it's not their idea, it's just, you know, the citizens' idea, so we need to discuss it and so on. But in fact, they do a lot to create this hate speech against LGBT people.
Thank you, Monica. I have a question as well, but I'll leave the floor to Andrea Salimbeni, who, for those of you who don't know him, is our resident ecological fight team leader within EUMANS. And Andrea.
Yeah, thanks, Virginia. Yeah, in fact, my question, of course, is about climate. Just not to move from my my skills, but first of all, the first question is how really the climate issue it is felt by citizens in Poland, as we every time say, okay, the crisis about coal is great in Poland, but and every time we see that periodically there are new initiatives from Polish government to increase the coal production. If I'm correct, in April 2021, there was an agreement in Katowice, which actually is the city where the COP24 was organized, when the Polish government decided to postpone the coal phase out to 2049, so about 2050, about 20 years after the European Commission targets. And the same period, a new coal mine, one of the largest in Europe, was opened, even if it was not compliant with the European rules. So, I mean, there are many events such these that could be object of protests by citizens, and maybe they are. The question is how they participate, and what is the how to say the rate of participation by citizens to the protests about coal and about climate in general.
Well, there is the climate strike, we call it, and it's the strike klimatyczny in Polish. It's kind of not organization, but kind of the movement, but mainly among young people. And I need to say that in Poland, mainly people who care about climate are in general these young people, the young generation. And it's a matter of the information people receive. And as I said, public media are, fully controlled by the government and the executive. And it's not in the interest to talk about climate problems for our authorities. On the contrary, we can hear quite often in the official propaganda that we need to take care about coal mines and so on, because it's so, it's tradition of Poland and another, such story. But I think people are more and more aware of the climate crisis. But as I said, mainly among young people. So I think it's good from that point of view. It's good to have this Congress in Warsaw, maybe also to mobilize these young people, especially young people. And I think that they might be very active in that matter.
Thank you, Monica. So I have Manlio Trovato and Sibilla Barbieri. Maybe the two of you can go, Manlio and then Sibilla, and then we'll see if there are other questions. I mean, if these are questions or comments.
Thank you, Virginia, and nice to reconnect after this long summer for me. Thanks, Monica, for what you've been describing. My question is, how much do you feel citizens in Poland are understanding, the wider population are understanding what's happening and therefore are becoming aware of the danger that's occurring in Poland, and therefore there is evidence that there may be a reversal trend for the support of this government. And I ask this because I'm based in London, in the UK, and while the situation is different, there are some similarities in terms of a number of power grabs that the government is happening in UK. And what I'm witnessing in UK is that whatever this government is doing, mistakes, errors, power grabs, the last one has been today, where one of the Tory MP was found to have breached one of the lobby rules, and in response to that, the government attempted to change the disciplinary regulations in order to avoid suspending this parliament, this MP. So clearly, essentially changing the law for their benefit in a very obvious and blatant way. And what I'm witnessing in the UK is whatever the government does, because of perhaps ideologies, the consensus doesn't change. You do polls and the consensus doesn't change at all. And I think that's driven by perhaps a fundamental division in society which has become ideological. And so there's a portion of society which is supporting this the acts of the government, regardless of what they do. And I wonder, is this happening in Poland as well, or do you think that the citizens are coming to an awareness that something needs to be done to change this?
Well, I think there are so many similarities if hearing what you say, because Polish society is very divided indeed, and even in families. And in fact, it's people seem to be very blind to what is happening, and almost each day right now, we have another scandal, and lots of people just don't care about it at all, and it's not an argument for them. So we face the same problem here in Poland, and it's a basic problem we have in general, and I don't know whether it's quite similar in Great Britain and in other countries. I think that what we'd made a big mistake after 89, but Polish governments, one after another, didn't pay attention to education in Poland, and now I think we pay for this, and people are not were not taught this critical way of thinking, and we are not taught discussion with arguments, and now we have a problem with information, access to information, and because on the one hand we have public TV, which in some areas in Poland is the only source of information for these people, especially in Eastern, for example, in the eastern part of Poland. And on the other hand, we have internet with lots of fake news and so on, and it's so easy to manipulate information in internet. So it's quite difficult. We see some, changes in the polls, but it's difficult. I wouldn't, for me as a judge, it's difficult to talk about it because it's quite political discussion right now. But just shortly speaking, I wouldn't say that there is a tendency right now. It's not the moment where something is really changing in people's mind. I mean, people, some people who are involved and were interested in what is happening really in Poland and with politics have more and more arguments, but they are already convinced that something should change. But on the other hand, the other group of people seem still not to be very aware of this.
Thank you, Monica. Sibilla Barbieri.
Okay. I was thinking about, I'm sorry, but this is the fire. Okay. Okay. The question that Marco put, how can some help can come from outside, from foreign? And so I was thinking of two things. The first thing was the money, the needing for the government in any way to have help. And so I think if at the end of our Congress, we can, for example, propose an initiative like a petition that can be something that in which the citizen can propose to European Union that don't help no more.
Your microphone, Sibilla.
Sorry.
Petition,
okay. The petition in which in which at the end of our Congress, if we can end with a petition in which the citizens say that to the European government that we don't, that there is no more help for Poland government if they don't respect the rule, or for example, the possibility to have a right judgment. The second point for me, I don't know if I'm clear. It's clear my explanation, Virginia. Okay. The second point for me is the possibility to spread the news of any protest initiative inside, for example, through a network of activists, because that can also show the support of the citizen to the Poland people that are fighting. I think it is very important that all the European citizens understand that what is happening in Poland is in a different level, is something that can happen everywhere. For example, the problem of abortion. And we know that in Luca Coscioni, that we know that there is a lot, there is a law in Italy, but this law is not respected. And so they can show that in a different scale, that is something that happened, and that this is still continuing to happen until Europe don't decide a same level of rights. That is my point.
Thank you, Sibilla. Also, because this last point that you brought up is very important in the planning and in the political vision of humans, which is the concept of the portability of civil rights. So the idea that our rights should be the same across the EU. So I think it's an important point to use the abortion.
Look at what happened now with the homosexuality and with the Decreto Zan, no, that we have, is in other level, but it's the same point.
Okay, thank you, Sibilla. I don't know if Monica, you want to go back to this point. Otherwise, I'll give the floor to Klaus Sambor from the Unconditional Basic Income European Citizen Initiative.
Yes, thank you. I want to say, because you have spoken about human rights, and this day is a great opportunity to combine the demands for the enforcement of human rights and the social Europe with our European Citizens Initiative about unconditional basic income. And we have seen that Poland has not much done in the direction of collecting signatures for these unconditional basic income. Can you help me to say if there is a movement which deals with this matter? Or could that be in Warsaw, be dealt with in the Congress?
I don't know if Marco wants to say something, but for sure, I think we can, I mean, the Congress will have a space around sustainability, the ecological, economical transition and so on. So I think if you, we can start to be, I mean, we already had a few conversations, but I think if some of you wants to bring the topic within the Congress, maybe or even in a critical manner, or like what can be done, and you see the Congress in Warsaw as a platform to kind of empower your goal, I think it will be important. We need to define how, and so, but I don't see, I mean, I don't see any reasons why not to discuss the economical aspects of the social Europe somehow. Okay, I have a question myself for Monica, which is a bit similar to the one that Sibilla was mentioning. So first of all, I find very brave Polish judges. I mean, it's not often the case that individuals take a stand publicly and in the civic space. So I think this is something that is very interesting to see. Also, how you are not scared of taking a stand, even if there might be consequences somehow. You were mentioning the disciplinary procedures and so forth and so on. So my question is, in general, how complicated it is to be an activist in Poland? Like, which are the risks for activists? Which are the issues that might be faced? And my second question, I was almost crying when you described the situation on the border between Belarus and Poland. And so 2 questions from that element. The first one is, how many direct actions, initiatives are happening in the area of refugees' rights? I have in mind the Mediterranean and the rescue operations of the boats in the Mediterranean with some NGOs and things like that. So I was wondering if at 0 degrees it's similar to the Mediterranean context. And secondly, last question is how the different fights are interconnected with each other. Like, for example, I don't know, though judges go to the pro-abortion demonstrations, or though the pro-abortion women goes to the judges' demonstration, or if there is a sort of a network or a platform that puts together the climate issue as well, like the different perspectives in one place, or if it's more single-based type of actions. And because I think probably something that the Congress could do is also to draw the connection between the different fights, but I want to know what's the approach among the different actors within the civil society and among citizens.
Well, about the border, I don't know if you are aware, but we have state of emergency in that region, on the border with Belarus. So first of all, it's very difficult to get there, and for example, journalists are prohibited to go there, and they are fined by going there even. So we don't have access to information. We have few organizations that are spontaneously created because, well, as everywhere, also here there are some activists in Poland, and it's, for example, the organizations of physicians, of doctors. It's called Medycy na Granicy. It's the doctors on the border, and they provide some help to these people. There are some other activists. It's the group called Border, Granica, and they try to help these people. But the only thing actually they can do is just try to deliver them some food, some clothes, and because it's not possible, for example, to help them to go to Germany, because then it's a crime. That's how it's treated. So the situation is really critical there. There are some protests, and last weekend, I think, that was not this, but before that Saturday, the big protest was organized in Eastern Poland, and former presidents' wives were participating in this protest, which was really quite huge, but not the current one. And it was really big event. So people are more and more aware of it. But on the other hand, we have again this propaganda in public media, and it's anti-refugee propaganda that, you know, these people are going to invade us and so on. So unfortunately, when you look at the polls, lots of people in Poland support what government is doing and this state of emergency. So it's quite dramatical, and we will see what's going to happen. Well, the winter is coming, so it's going to be even worse. And the second one, the second question you asked, for us judges, it's always more difficult, you know, first, we have no problem, at least a group of us and Iustitia, which I represent, we don't have problem with speaking out and talking about judiciary and taking part in events which are linked to judiciary and rule of law and so on, but it's not that obvious regarding other issues. But for example, last time when we had this anti-constitutional court's verdicts protest, where the Constitutional Court stated that there is the contradiction between European law and Polish constitution, which is not true, by the way. So there were protests, and we organized it together with many other organizations like Amnesty International, like Helsinki Foundation of Human Rights, like women's strike, like this climatic strike. So that was quite a wide representation of civil society in Poland. And I don't think there is one platform which joins all organizations in Poland. It's even not possible. But on some matters, at least, there is will to cooperate. And for sure, when we talk about the judiciary, and because finally, whatever problem we have, whether it's you know, LGBT people rights, women's rights, and climate change, and all these problems end when there's the problem and in courts. So the judiciary is something what unites all these issues, all these problems. So that's why it's easier to unite in this matter, on this matter. And then for us, it's not a problem to participate in it.
Thank you for this point. I think the fact that at the end of the day, we all end up in a court for something that relates to our life, it's kind of a nice way to put it ultimately. Okay, so there is Roberto Mancuso and then Luca Dal Pubel.
Thank you, Virginia. First of all, I think we must really thank to Monika for the informations she gives us. I think is really very important to know really what is the situation in Poland, but not only in Poland. In effect, I think that the debate, the pre-Congress of Warsaw, of our Congress, or EUMANS Congress, must be focused not only on the Polish situation, but about the situation, the rule of law situation in all Europe, because the risk is to be used by the propaganda system of Polish media, like the angels which comes from Europe to give democracy, rule of law, and so on. And so I think the Warsaw Congress could be a good start for talking about the rule of law all around Europe. And particularly, it would be very important to start our debate about the report, the European report about rule of law, because we know that there are a lot of mistakes and not true there is not the truth in the European report about the rule of law, such as for Italy, but also for other countries. So the debate, second my point of view, must be focused on the rule of all around Europe and not only for Poland. It's and this for the rights, the human rights, the rule of law for Poland. In other way, we will be manipulated by propaganda system or Polish propaganda system. Sorry for my English, really. And so another things, I think the refugees problem is not a problem. We must consider that refugees is not a problem only for Poland. It's not a Polish problem, like it isn't an Italian problem or a Hispanic problem, and so it isn't also a European problem, but is a world problem. And so, for this reason, it should be deal with transnational instruments like transnational institutions, sorry, and but the movements, the citizen movements, it is also important to support the deal about this problem. And so also for this argument, I think we must go to Warsaw, not to explain to Polish people how to fight, how to resolve this problem, but as brothers of the same Europe, which wants to fight for the same rights, Sorry again for my English. It was my first speech in English in EUMANS, and I hope it will be not the only one.
Thank you, Roberto. You are even more clear in English than in Italian. No, thank you very much.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
No, but I think you made a couple of very important points. One is the fact that certain issues need to be tackled transnationally. The second important point, in my opinion, is that we should conceive the Congress not as a place where we go take the stage and say, but where there is a creative political process, a shared creative political process. So also in thinking how the Congress happened, I think we should imagine ways to make this effort. We had, and maybe we can organize something in the next meeting next week when we talk about the environment. We had the Transnational Assembly on Climate in Palermo with citizens take over Europe. And I think, I don't know if Andrea agrees with me, the format was quite interesting because the goal of the day, that day, was to have small groups thinking together, and the ultimate goal was to elaborate a shared declaration on climate for the Conference on the Future of Europe, with also some policy proposals. So I think the way how we organize the moments of the Congress and how we come up with the final results is very, very important for what you say. So organizing the Congress in Warsaw is not only talking about the issues, but it's how we talk and let others to talk about the issues, but also how we create the output of the Congress in a way that is not the classical way. Luca Dal Pubel, who is also working on the relationship with the universities in Warsaw to understand the feasibility of the Congress within the university. But
yes, thank you, Virginia. Thank you, Virginia, and thank you, Monica, for being here with us today. And my question as Virginia was saying, I'm trying to create some sort of connection with the universities in Poland, specifically in Warsaw. So my question, and forgive me if you already talked about this, but I joined in 15 minutes late because of a previous commitment. But what is the stand of the academic world regarding everything that is happening in Poland, and specifically the rule of law, violation of human rights? And I'm asking this question because I work for the San Diego State University in California, and I've been trying to work with some of the contacts that I have in Warsaw, and it seems like there's a little bit of resistance to kind of talk or open up to the initiative that we're trying to have held in Warsaw. Do you have any experience with that, and what's your relationship with the academic world? Have you been working with them, and what kind? Does any support from the academic world in terms of raising voices about what's happening in Poland?
Well, what you might experience is kind of auto-censorship, which is which you can observe among Polish people right now. Because even if people disagree with what is happening in Poland, they think twice or 3 or 4 times before they decide to do something, which might be seen as an action against government. And maybe that's what you experienced. But in general, I would say that academic world, right, that society in Poland is in general against this, what is happening, and this pro rule of law. And like recently, we have the statement delivered by the Society of Academics, which is the Polish Academy of Science, and it joins academics from different universities, and they were very clear that Poland should be an important member of European Union, and that it's so crucial for us to be member of European Union, and that Poland needs to follow the principles and rule of law should be brought back to Poland. So I would say that in general, academic world is in favor of rule of law, and is maybe not very actively, but is also opposing against these terrible changes in Poland. That's what I would say.
Mm-hmm. And do you think I'm exchanging emails and to this good contact that I have for other reasons, because she works in my field, but with, I don't know if you know her, but it's called, her name is Katarzyna Antolak-Zimanski, and she is with the SWPS, University of Social Sciences and Humanities. And my question to you, can I spend your name in a sense that you were invited and to talk about the rule of law and other issues in Poland, and as a way maybe for us to connect and maybe create with you maybe this connection also with that university?
Yeah, sure. And I think I think you should try to make contact with other universities and academies. Yes. in Warsaw. Like we have Koźmiński's academy, and then we have SWPS, it's SWC. Yes, yeah. So they are very open for sure for cooperation. So, and I think with Warsaw University, there are plenty of academics who are really openly opposing against what is happening in Poland. So
yeah, I've been talking to the University of Warsaw. I've been talking to the pro-rector. Her name is Ziva Kugolek. I don't know if you know her, but
I don't know her personally, but
yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Luca. In the meantime, I'm reading some comments from Carla Pisi about a session that was held on the 28th of October on the rule of law report that also Roberto was mentioning with Commissioner Reinders and the Slovenian presidency of the European Council. The session was web streamed, so we can get the link. Thank you, Carla. If you want to share the link, that would be very helpful. And also that Dr. Lauren Peck, who attended some of our meeting, and Dr. Petra Barb are about to submit a study on the methodology on which the report was built, also raises some critical issues on the way to the report of 2021 that was written. That will be ready at the end of November. Great, thank you, Carla, for this information. I also think that maybe since we are in contact with Lauren Peck, maybe one idea could be to invite him as soon as the new report is published to present that as part of the preparation of the Congress. Okay, so it's 7 p.m. Usually we have time between 7 and 7:30 for finishing the meeting. So I will leave a few seconds if anyone else wants to add something, thoughts, considerations, both on what we heard from Monika, but also to activate our brain to hold the Warsaw Congress as a whole. Like, for example, Marco had an idea on the Academy of Science, like this thing of the Academy of Science is definitely something important. The relationship between the different actors in the civic space in Poland and the connection with the judiciary system. Monika mentioned a few organizations that I think it might be worth to take into account as we progress. And I remember all of us that we have a sort of a calendar of meetings so that each week, each Thursday, we try to have at least one person from Poland that can help us to focus on a specific angle. And next week, we are gonna talk about environmental issues. So Andrea, it's your turn to find one or two people, not to make it too technical. I think the more we have, like tonight, in between the expertise of the person, but also the broader picture. And the other thing that I want to do for next week is to make sure we have someone of the people who worked on the Transnational Assembly in Palermo on the climate declaration, because I think also the way how we worked on that is quite interesting and can be an interesting perspective for our debate. So any other comments, question, thought? Klaus.
Sorry for this question, because I should know it perhaps. My question is the date of the conference already fixed? And is it a face-to-face conference and hybrid possibly to be also in that conference?
So the answer is it should be the Friday the 11th and Saturday the 12th of March. But let's just pencil it because we need to understand, for example, the relationship with the university and a few other elements, but mid-March, and for sure not later than the end of March. The online, offline, it's definitely offline, it's definitely there. So we want to be in Warsaw physically, but through a series of events that we're organizing and experiences that we all gained, I think we should try to imagine it as something that can be attended in different ways, in different moments, but offline and online. But this depends also on those among us who will work on the project, the economical resources we can gain with the membership campaign of EUMANS and the fundraising, also on technologies that can help to have an experience that is nice. For sure it's gonna be live streamed, that's for sure, but maybe we can also imagine things that help us to broaden the type of experience, also for who can't be with us. And of course, Klaus, maybe when we will have a dedicated meeting on the more social issues, if you want not only to come yourself, but maybe also if you have partners in Poland that are supporting the European Citizen Initiative, maybe it's a good idea to connect and have maybe a moment on this. Okay, so thanks everyone. So the appointment is for next Thursday at 6 p.m. Focus on the Warsaw Congress of Humans in the Warsaw Congress climate angle, but in general, I remind all of us that on Monday, Marco is gonna be in front of the Petty Committee of the European Parliament to present the carbon pricing proposal, who had been transformed from an European Citizen Initiative into a petition by the Petty Committee itself. So we're gonna present the carbon pricing from an official seat at the table. And thanks, Monika, very much for being with us and for being so thorough in your presentation, but also in the replies to the many questions that we had for you. And I really hope that from today on, we can keep a line of communication. And even if you have ideas of things that can help us to work on this project and how we can work together on the Warsaw Congress project, I hope we can build something together.
Yeah, I think there are so many NGOs in Poland you should contact and you might cooperate with. And they will be, I think, very interested in this cooperation. Like, as I said, Amnesty International, Helsinki Foundation, Human Rights, all the women of strike, the strike of women, and then climate strike and other. So for sure that they will be interested.
Thank you very much. And also,
Thank you.
I don't know if you're still, if Iustitia is a member of MEDEL.
Yes, because I'm also representing Iustitia in MEDEL.
So maybe we can also think about other organization of judges that might be interested in the pan-European approach that we are trying to build for the Congress. So thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.
Ciao.
Thank you. Ciao.
Ciao, ciao, ciao.
Ciao.